Welcome to your help video for your 6th Hazards CAT. We're going to talk through how to approach the two questions that you've got for this week. They're both 9-mark questions, and before we start, it's probably worth saying a little bit about how these 9-mark questions work, because they're only actually questions that you'll come across in the hazards topic. You won't come across these questions in the water and carbon cycle or the coast topic, just in the hazards topic, and also in the population and environment topic that you do for human geography. Within these questions, you can think about these as being a little bit like a mini 20-mark question, where you've got to present some kind of viewpoint or argument. These sorts of questions tend to be evaluative or ask you to make an assessment. They are not asking you just to describe and explain like you get on the sort of lower mark questions. They are a little bit like the 9-mark questions you did at GCSE, in so much as you're expected to maybe consider different sides of a viewpoint and have some examples and evidence to support your points as well. If we have a look at the first question, it says, with reference to a place which has experienced a recent volcanic event, assess the importance of exogenous factors, which are links with other places, in responding to the event. Now, when we start to unpick this question, you'll see that there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. So, first bit, with reference to a place which has experienced a recent volcanic event. That's really important. You need to be tying your answer into a particular place and a particular volcanic event. Don't misanswer this question and start writing about earthquakes. It must be about a volcanic event. It's then asking you to assess. Okay. Now, the command word assess, as it says down here, is asking you to come to a judgment about something. So in this case, how important are the exogenous factors in responding to that event, or how important were those exogenous factors? Now, you'll have come across this word exogenous factors before. You'll have come across it in the changing places unit, and that is because within these 9-mark questions, sometimes you will get links either within the topic, so it might get you to link between storm events and volcanic events, or it might be a link between topics, in this case between the hazards topic and the changing places topic. You may also experience links between the hazards topic and the global systems and governance topic as well. So exogenous factors are all about links with other places. So really we can interpret this question as saying, as I've written here, how much did X, being your chosen volcanic event or your place, how much did X rely on links with other places in order to respond to the event? How important were those links with other places in responding to a particular volcanic event? So you can start to think about whether they were very important or quite important or not that significant at all. When we unpick what sort of exogenous factors you might talk about, you might come on to these kinds of things. So maybe reliance on international aid or international cooperation, where maybe countries have to work together to achieve the same aim, maybe about the migration of refugees, or maybe future support in maybe monitoring that volcano going forward. All of those things would form part of that idea of exogenous factors. Now, in some examples, those exogenous factors won't be very important. In other examples, they are really important. So it very much does depend on which case study that you're going to use. That will obviously determine your viewpoint, because for some examples, those exogenous factors would have more of an influence than others. It will also significantly influence the detail that you are going to include. You want to be mentioning some of the responses to the event. You want to have some specific facts and figures and details about that case study. But obviously those details are going to vary from place to place because each of those volcanic events are unique. So have a think about which example you're going to use. Then think about how important those exogenous factors were. and then you can start to hopefully have a nice clear plan of where you're going within that answer. The second the second 9-mark question that you've got on your CAT follows a similar kind of pattern, in so much as we're also being asked to assess in this question. So again, we're being asked to come to a judgment about something. This question, though, is about seismic events. So we've got to switch our head now to start thinking about earthquakes or the hazards associated with earthquakes. So we need to consider how important past and present processes of development are in helping us to understand the impact of the hazard. So really, we can start to unpick this question. Again, you might have come across that phrase, or should have come across that phrase, past and present processes of development, again in the changing places topic. So we're thinking about how those processes, how important are they in helping us to understand the impact of a hazard? So really, we can think about reinterpreting that question as being, how much did development processes contribute to the impacts of the earthquake in whatever place? Okay. Some of those development processes are going to be things like the GDP or the GNI per capita, the amount of poverty or the rates of urbanization, or political stability or colonialism. All of those sorts of factors will influence how severe an earthquake is. You can consider how those things might have had an impact in terms of killing more people, maybe causing more buildings to collapse and so on. But you can also think about how those things might have affected the responses. So the impacts of an earthquake can be made worse by a slow response and some poor management. So some of those things will have contributed before the earthquake happens, and some of those things will have contributed after the earthquake as well. It's important that you consider both of those things within your answer. Again, the detail and your viewpoint is probably going to vary depending on which example that you use. When I first looked at this question, Haiti and the Haiti earthquake, that is a great example that you could use. There are lots and lots of past and present processes of development which have contributed to meaning that the impact of the Haiti earthquake in 2010 was very significant. So you should be able to go back in your notes and have a look at what those factors were, what those past and present processes of development were, and start to then think about how important they are in helping us to understand the impact of the hazard. Remember, they don't explain everything, but they do help us to get a very good idea about why the Haiti earthquake was so devastating.